Hello and welcome to Navigate Autism with Jane Lynn. I'm your host, Jane Lynn Britton. Today I have a really exciting show for you. I'm going to tell you how you can take your child out in the community in a really fun way. I'm also going to show you a fun game that you can create with your child and do perhaps with your child's friends. I also have a special guest who has developed a natural healing technique that's really transforming lives, including the lives of children with autism. And then the director, one of the directors of Princeton TV, is joining me and one of my friends to ask us some questions about autism. It's going to be a lot of fun, so let's get started. Did you know that often you can find sensory-friendly shows at a movie theater or even a regular theater? All you have to do is look online for your area, and chances are you are going to find something. In fact, in my area, every month there are sensory-friendly movies. Also, there are theaters, not every month, but very frequently. Now, another suggestion that I have is use your connections. If you have friends, family that go to a local high school or middle school that are doing a play, see if you can talk to the director and see if you can bring your child to one of the final dress rehearsals. It's great practice for the students who are rehearsing because they're going to have distractions to deal with in the real performance, but it's also fewer people, probably no one in the audience. So if your child gets up and walks around or makes a noise, it's not that big of a deal. Definitely check your local listings and see what you can find. Today we have a really fun afternoon where I'm taking William to Princeton Friends School, where we call it outreach, and we have the opportunity to hang out with some of the students there after school doing after school activities. So it helps their kids learn about William and autism, and it helps William get great social interaction and make friends. As I was planning our activity for today, I thought I would share that with you because it's a really great thing. You can do this in your home, but you can also do it out with friends. Now, one of the things I've learned is our kids love things that are new and different and fun. So I always introduce an activity with something fun like this bag. How cool is that? And I just carry my props, my scissors or tape, whatever in here, and in this case this big roll of paper. What we're going to do today is, because we've had a lot of snow recently, we're going to make snowmen. The kids are going to open this big roll of paper and roll it out onto the floor several times, and then we're going to use some markers to do an outline of them, and they're going to be the snowmen. Then they get to use scissors to cut it out, and I have this really fun, colorful paper to cut out and decorate the snowmen. So we can decorate. I found some really fun stickers that they can use and some glittery things too, because you know kids like things to dazzle. And also, in order to tape it, this is something neat. It's like glue, but you kind of move it across the paper. It's like little glue dots. So you can use this or actual glue that we can squeeze, but this is really fun and something different. And again, new things kind of excite not only William, but the other kids as well. I'm also going to carry it all in this really fun Halloween bucket because it's fun. When I walk in with all this stuff to Princeton Friends School, the kids are going to go crazy and they're not going to be able to hold in their excitement. Now, I'm going to tell you the next thing we're going to do. This is a surprise for them. Once we cut out the snowmen and decorate them, we're going to cut the circles that are going to be the buttons. We're going to cut them, and then we're going to hang the snowmen around the room, take balls, and throw them through. So this is a very long activity of drawing, of cutting, of decorating, of taping, and then hanging and throwing balls, and at the very end they're going to be able to use their physical exertion to throw balls into the snowman, which they're going to find so fun, but also it's going to get some of that energy out. One of the things I try to do when I build these activities is make it multifaceted so that there are lots of different components that everyone is interested, and if for any reason William or another child needs to walk away and come back, they can, because there are multiple fun steps that they can get involved in. And at the very end, I try to make it super fun, again, like throwing a ball through the snowman, so that they can all like laugh and enjoy and then look at their creation that they did together. So I hope you found that fun. Maybe you'll try that with your family, and again, you can do that out with friends or in the home. Today's special guest is Susan Burdick. Susan was a massage therapist, but then she realized that people were getting off of her table and telling her that they had experienced a healing that was a little bit deeper than the traditional massage. They had more clarity, less brain fog, less pain, and more general health and well-being. So Susan decided to take a look at that and realized there was something special there. She developed her own therapy called Restore for Life, and she's using it to help families and children with autism transform their lives. She also teaches nurses and other holistic practitioners this therapy. She also teaches us, and she's going to tell us about that in a little bit. But right now, please welcome Susan Burdick. Susan, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is such a great honor. I highly respect all the work you do, and I think that this is going to be a great experience for everyone today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're here, and to be Skyping in from New Hampshire today. I'm very happy you're here. And I have so many things I want to talk to you about, but first I'd like to also introduce Heidi Rome. Heidi is a regular on Navigate Autism, right? She's been on 2 of my shows already, and you probably remember her from Behind the Scenes of Autism, where she opened up and told us the challenges she was having with her 11-year-old son and the really difficult decision she and her family made, which was to send him to a boarding school out of the state. Now she is founder of Mom's Spectrum Oasis. She's a mom's autism coach, and she opens her doors on April 2nd. So I know you're incredibly busy, Heidi, and I'm so happy that you're here to join us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, Heidi also is here because she works with Susan and has experienced some of the healing that I was telling you about. So she's going to share later what she has felt and experienced from the work Susan has done with her.
Yes.
Thank you. So Susan, I've only known you for 6 weeks, but really you have transformed my life and my son's life, and I just couldn't wait for you to come and share with the rest of us a little bit more about Restore for Life. What is that, and how does that work?
It's actually a light touch therapy. I'm barely touching the skin, and there's a lot going on in the skin. There's your lymphatic system, there's the connective tissue in your fascia, there's nerve endings, and there's your meridians and acupuncture points. So I take all of that, and by using the light touch, it's a safety mechanism for the brain. It brings in all the neurotransmitters. So what happens is, as I'm very lightly touching you, the information goes through a receptor. Half the information goes through your neurological system. The other half goes through your connective tissue, your fascia, and its matrix, which is the only system that touches every part of your body and every part of your being and every cell. So as I'm doing this, the neurotransmitters are sending information to your brain, and then serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, and substance P. Substance P goes to your brain and says this part of the body is in trouble, sends down more chemicals, and involuntarily relaxes all the connective tissue, the fascia, and the matrix. What's happening now is you're bringing more blood, more oxygen, and nutrients through that area that was impinged. You're also allowing each cell to detox, and you're allowing the lymphatic system now to completely purify all of your systems. Your meridians are open, and so now you're getting better energy going through your body. And it's a domino effect. So what happens is now this area is getting every single thing it needs to thrive. by getting the blood, oxygen, and nutrients, detoxing. The cells are now getting fed that may not have been getting fed before. And so when you do this completely all over the body, fully dressed, the only thing you remove is your shoes, you're opening up the entire body to better function on all levels. It works on all levels because your cells have memory, your muscles have memory, and all of the trauma, neuroplasticity, your brain retains all of this information as well. So by releasing these areas, you're opening up the body to be able to communicate better with itself. You're going to get better circulation, you're going to get better neurological signals. And I've worked with a multitude of diseases that greatly increase their productivity and their brain function because of this technique.
There's so much that you're able to do from this therapy. It really is wonderful. And like I said, I've seen some of it firsthand, so it's very exciting for me. But I mentioned a little bit about what kind of inspired you to start thinking about it, but what really led you to create Restore?
I saw a tremendous need. I myself have run into situations with my family, and everyone I saw. There had to be something for women to be able to take care of their families without constantly depending on someone else. And so that was my desire. That was anything anyone creates is simply something that they just experiment, they open up their mind, and they get very creative. And that's how it began. But really, it was the need for a service to support families. I've seen too many women with autism or children with cancer or a whole variety of different things that just felt absolutely hopeless. And that was not acceptable to me.
I love that, the empowerment that you give people and the knowledge. And you mentioned a little bit about how it works. You said you keep your clothes on. Do you mind just explaining a little bit more? Because when I take William somewhere, it really helps for me to have an idea of what to expect for a session. So do you mind explaining that a little bit?
So when I'm doing the light touch, like I said, it's a safety mechanism for the brain. I'm barely touching his skin, the weight of a feather. So they're going to feel that very gentle touch. They're also going to occasionally feel my full hand barely touching them. People come in with very casual t-shirts, sweatpants, socks, and it kicks in your parasympathetic nervous system. So now you're going to sleep through the entire session and relax. That's actually when the body starts to heal. But that's what you would expect to experience during a session.
Well, you might have answered my next question is, William, William likes to move around quite a bit. So would a child like that who's got to be moving be able to sit for that long?
So if I'm working with a child that's hyperactive or always needs to move or is just uncomfortable, if it's a small child, they sit on their mom and I actually work with them right on the mom. Sometimes they'll lay on a table, the mom, and then the child will lay next to them. Or if it's an older child, 14, 18 years old, then what I do is I sit them in a chair and I give them something to entertain them, and then I work on them. Eventually, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, they get tired, and then they'll either choose to sit there or they'll choose to lay down, whatever works for them.
I love that. That's perfect, actually. Now, what about a child who doesn't like touch? Right? We have hypersensitivities and some of our kids can't stand that. Have you been able to help calm that and help them?
Absolutely. I will do a firmer touch. When I do a handhold, it will be much firmer on them versus someone else. I'll start lightly to get the feel of exactly what's going on in their body. I've done this for so many years, I can actually feel what I need to do in what part of the body is dysfunctioning. So it's really nice. I teach people how to do this in the workshops, and I do that because I again want to empower people.
Well, it's absolutely true, and it's just so nice that we can have something recurring that we can do as parents, right? Because we spend so much time and money every year on resources and therapies for our kids, and when we can have something that helps and can do it whenever we need to, it's just wonderful. So tell me some of the results you have seen with some of your clients with autism.
Well, on my website, the reason why I wrote the workshops was this little one who was almost 3 years old. He came to me straight from Children's Hospital, and he had they labeled him low functioning autism. So when I met him, he couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, he just made noise, and he crawled around on the floor. He could walk with assistance if you held both hands and you assisted him around the room. My first session with him, I started, he was laying on his mom, and I was working with him, and afterward he had a presence. You could see facial expression. You could see him casually like looking at you for a second and then moving on. But it was very exciting. You could see someone in there instead of just a blank look. By the third session, they brought me in secretly because they didn't want anyone to, they wanted to see the effects of Restore and what it could do. So they didn't tell any of the therapists or doctors what she was doing on the side. So by the third session, all of the doctors, nurses, everyone said, I can't believe what happened. All the doors just blew wide open for this child, and we are blowing through all of our therapies. That's when she started passing out my card. By that third session, he had full eye contact. He started formulating words, and he was walking independently at that point. In 8 sessions, he was completely functional. They were moving to a different state, and I was sitting on the table. The child was leaning up against me. Mom was singing the school bus song on the floor, and I'm working on his head in the back, in his spinal column. And he turned around and he grabbed me, and he said, I got you. And he definitely did. There was so much joy in that room because this child was a normal functioning child at this point. They moved to, like I said, to a different state, and the doctors, when they transferred the records, said, I don't even see autism in him, never mind low functioning autism. And so that's where the story really began.
Susan, I just have
Wow.
chills up and
Right?
down my body
I know, right?
right now. And I know you have so many other stories. That really is the perfect one, and especially because there's a video of the mom and the son on your website. So I encourage people to watch it because it really is heartwarming. But why don't we turn to Heidi now, because Heidi, you have a son, as we've said,
Yes.
with autism. He's 11, or has he turned 12?
He's 13 now.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
It has
right?
been that long.
Yes.
Okay.
13.
Wow. Okay, so he's 13 now.
Yes.
And he has seen Susan, and you told me some things, but please share. What are some of the things you're seeing?
Well, for those who haven't heard, Ethan is a wonderful guy, but virtually nonverbal. So very little language. The language he has is mostly about food, the important things. But that is an issue, and he does have anxiety and several OCD behaviors. And one of the things that Ethan would get stuck on was everyone's birthday and having to recite birthdays. Every time he would see you, go through the months of the year, January, February, and then he'd hit somebody's birthday, April, May, and so April, Eric's birthday, April 15th, and we'd have to go through the year, and this would be every time we would see him. And then he would start the cycle again, and to the point where we had to write down everyone's birthday and give him a piece of paper to refer him back in the hope of breaking this cycle. It was really disruptive. After the first session with Susan, we noticed that in the first conversation, it wasn't even until after the fact, I said, wait a second, no birthdays. What happened?
Surprise.
Surprise. We still talked about, what he had for lunch and all the food, but even that was a little, we did it once and it was over. And the birthdays had disappeared, and I said, this is miraculous, because it had just been this constant irritant, and it was in his way.
Right.
He couldn't continue and enjoy himself because he had to go through the list of birthdays. So that was the first time. And then we noticed that we were able to, actually my husband and son, my older son, were with Ethan, and they were saying to him that I wasn't there at that point, Mommy is busy. She's launching this new business to help moms of kids with autism. Remember the business that you helped her name? And he had helped. He came up with the Oasis part of the name. So Mom's very busy. And they said to me, Ethan just sat, looked at them, and listened for the 3 sentences that it took. You have to know.
That's
this
huge.
is a first.
Right.
It's a first because Ethan has such auditory processing issues that when you speak with Ethan, he gets irritated because he's probably not processing yet. And it feels like a demand. Oh, you want me to listen and do something? And he gets upset. He sat and listened calmly, and they were shocked. They were stunned. So this is extraordinary. These are 2 extraordinary developments right there.
Absolutely. Well, I'll share one of my experiences because Susan has worked with William too. Thank you. 8 months of, I call the Energizer Bunny, not stopping, central nervous system revving, not sleeping. And it was, a lot. So within 15 minutes, literally he starts to calm down. And as Susan mentioned, that sometimes you don't see the full effects for 1 or 2 days because the body is kind of getting back into alignment, right, and functioning. We saw it almost immediately. William's got great eye contact, but I mean deeper, more intentional. Same thing, he would sit and listen. He would explore. He would open drawers, which, on the one hand, you're like, oh my God, what mess are you making? But realistically, he was taking things out, looking at them, putting on sunglasses, putting on a pretend necklace we used to use in our homeschool program. He was engaging. He used to live in his room for a while. Now he's coming downstairs and asking to be with us. This is after 1 session.
Wow.
Yes. Right?
Wow.
It's like this major fog lifted, and he was getting out of his way, right? The things that were getting in the way were just not there anymore, and he could be himself. And we've actually only had 2 sessions, but I couldn't wait to get Susan here because it was just like life-changing for all of us. And part of that change, too, is that we always have hope and faith, but it's a restored hope and faith, right? Because we can see that there's something now that we know is going to continue to help. And I just can't wait to come get trained how to do this myself.
Absolutely.
Today's show with Susan Burdick and Heidi Rome was so powerful, and there was so much information that we decided to cut it into 2 segments. Did not want to edit anything out. So please join us again for our next show to hear more about this life-changing therapy, Restore for Life. Today on Ask Jane Lynn, I have Sharyn Murray, who is the station manager for Princeton TV, joining me, as well as Heidi Rome, one of my regulars here on Navigate Autism. Heidi is an autism mom's coach. Sharyn has experience with autism. She's also been the director for me many times in filming my show and has learned a lot, knows a lot about autism, but has questions. So I thought it'd be perfect to bring us all together. So Sharyn, what is one of the questions that you have that Heidi would love to answer for you?
Well, one of my burning questions is, why is having the diagnosis of autism so painful for parents?
Great question. I think that applies to all parents, right? I can't imagine it not. So Heidi, that's a great question. Why is it so painful?
Well, I think there are several levels to the question, and of course there's a diagnosis shock when you get a diagnosis of any kind, but certainly with something like autism, usually you have a baby looks perfect, and things start happening and you start to realize something is not quite the way we expected, and then you get a diagnosis that really changes the whole script that you have now written for your life, and you have to grieve the dream of what you had already envisioned for your child and accept and recognize and live into a new normal that you weren't expecting. So I think that's the beginning of something painful to deal with. At the same time, I think there are other things running in the background beyond the obvious of, a diagnosis of something that has lifelong implications. And part of that, there are two pieces to it that I think are very powerful things, programs running in the background that we may not even be aware of. So for example, the first one is the tragedy narrative around autism. If I say the word autism, you're going to have an immediate gut response of tragedy, bad, catastrophe, have to deal with it, a negative thing, and your whole body, your whole being is going to react to this in a very powerful, fear-based survival way because, oh my goodness, this is life and death. This is very, very important that I must deal with right now. So you're coming from fear when there's this, everyone's presenting autism as this terrible thing. And then linked to that is the myth of the good mother.
We all have that, right?
Right. We live into that. And of course, ironically, it's when you let go of that myth that you become a better mother because you make it all about you. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Do other people think I'm doing the right thing? What would a good mother do? A good mother would pursue every crazy possible avenue, anywhere in the world, anything to save my kid from this tragedy. And if I don't do everything and turn every rock over and be all consumed in a martyr in the face of this, I'm not being a good mother. And I think that is a huge cause of pain for many people.
And for me, that makes me think too, the judgment, right?
Yes.
I think that was really what you were saying too.
Absolutely.
Is that I am sure most people don't walk down the street, look at us and judge us the way we think they do, but we're just so self-aware of how different we are and feeling broken from the dream we thought we were going to have not being there and not knowing what to do to get it back. So from my experience, that's where a lot of the pain has come from.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the good news in that awareness is that you realize that you can change the narrative for yourself and move out of a fear-based place and say, you know what if I choose not to view this? It is a hard challenge, heaven knows.
Right.
It's hard, but if I say, well, what if it's hard, but I don't choose to look at it as a tragedy, given it is what it is. Well, what if I choose to look at this as a challenge, as, something I need to deal with? And who can I be in the face of this hard challenge? Am I going to be a victim of tragedy, or am I going to be a protagonist who says, what's possible here and what can I look at and be curious about what the future will hold, even in the face of something very difficult to deal with?
Great.
Even you saying that, Heidi, gives me goosebumps.
Really?
Yeah, because I think that when you're dealt with something where you see it as a tragedy, it is an opportunity to change the narrative. I always believe that.
That's right.